MC and Go Joe. You might even cast those replays a little bit later on. For now, we just want to get started. So we are on the load screen, as you can see, and let's focus up on this, what should be a hell of a TvT, as we have a hell of a lot of lag loading in there, but we do survive it, and in we go. To the bottom right hand side, this is actually such like a fanboy matchup for me. One of my favorite players ever. I met him at one of the first ever StarCraft events I went to, which was Gfinity, and he was so awesome, kind, very cool to talk to, and just a cool guy in general, and has always been very cool to me ever since. This is FanTaSy in the bottom right hand side. He's up against the Blue Terror player, who I think I've probably never casted, because he stopped playing before I ever really casted Korean content or ran my own tournaments and stuff like that, you know? So I don't think I've ever really had the chance to cast this guy, yet I remember so many of my early days of StarCraft 2 being taken up learning his builds, watching his games, studying his VODs. This is Bomber. I mean, what an absolute legend. And he is back. He's been playing a lot. We saw him lurking in the Twitch chat a little while ago. He got gifted a sub in a sub bomb. It's pretty crazy, actually. So really cool to see Bomber back here. Really cool to see this TvT kicking off. I'm excited to see what's going to happen as we go on into this. So, I mean, TvT, it's been an aggressive matchup as of late, but as both players don't go into a second gas, we're actually just going to start it with nice Reaper expands, no double gas play, not even safe double gas expansions, which makes this very, very interesting here. So, just immediately kind of accelerating towards the mid game, which I just love. I mean, it's so Bomber, isn't it? And it's kind of so FanTaSy as well. These guys are like the epitome of, let's just play some macro, you know, macro games with some sick micro mixed in there. Bomber was well known for his SCV pulls and so on for a while as well, but, you know, everyone's got an SCV pull once in a while in TVP, otherwise, you know, when are you ever going to win your games, am I right, guys? SCV is just scouting around then, so Bomber being a little bit more cautious with his scout, and FanTaSy just checks the very common and nearby locations for proxy racks in case it is going to be a 2-Rax Reaper, and feels confident enough to throw down the reactor. If this was 2-Rax Reaper, this would be a build order loss, but because it isn't, because he feels confident enough, he goes straight into that, and gets this set up to roll. Tell you what, guys, I'm already going to picture us up today, if only my picture-in-picture button was working. Apparently it isn't. Let's picture us up just very quickly, because MC is currently under attack from Ravagers, Roaches, and Queens after his cannon rush. So that's going on as well currently, that PvZ, MC versus Go Joey. But it looks like MC is just about holding on. The shield batteries are very good for him. He doesn't actually have much damage output, though, and he's actually put in a corner. A couple of corrosive bars do very well for him right there. And MC, is he broken? He's got an Immortal now, and I think the Immortal should be good enough to defend this, because there isn't a ton of units really left over beyond this from Go Joey. So it looks like MC will probably just about be able to hold on over in that PvZ. It's still kind of close, though, but I mean, he's getting a second Immortal as well, right? So, yeah, I think MC is pretty okay. He can even afford to lose workers, because he's up by about 14 or so, which you guys probably can't see. Yeah, this looks as though MC has pretty much held this off, guys. So we're going to jump back, fully focus on the TvT, as we do see FanTaSy trying to scout up and get some information here with these first couple of units, with that Reaper just jumping in, sees the setup of the structures here, sees there's no tech lab on the starport, for example, reactor on the racks, and, well, that's a complete change-up. He cancels all of his units. Wow. Bomber just cancels his units and decides to completely change up what's going on here. So there you go. That's a different, a bit of a different way of doing this. Most definitely. So just going to go to Stim straight away in a couple more racks. I mean, again, I guess it sells a bit of a fake idea to FanTaSy. He was just going into that Raven and with the tank as well. He's probably looking for a fairly fast tank push, which could be pretty deadly if Bomber's going to rely very heavily on early game Marines. So that definitely could get very confusing, very complex here as we go. Let's see those two extra barracks getting started up. Factory gets that tech lab on the main base. So getting that tech lab onto the factory here, as we do see the Cyclone from FanTaSy pulling back down towards the natural. Another tank being built on up here as well. The Raven still just overhead with these Marines. So FanTaSy just getting this going. To see +1 attack and Stim on the way in. And again, a siege tank from Bomber. So he will have tanks to help him defend, but he won't have any air units, which means that he won't have his own Raven for interference matrix. He won't have any Vikings. His starport went on a bit of a wonder there. We've all done that. You lift the starport to go and build a production structure, and you rally your structures to the front, or to build an add-on, sorry. Then you rally your structures to the front while it's in the sky, and the starport goes for a bit of a wonder. So Bomber just fixing that up there. Just good, good to see that the legend of my mind, Bomber, is, as prone to those mistakes as I am. I'll feel a little bit less bad when I do that myself next time. As we are going to be seeing the, command center dropping down here on the third base. So Bomber gets a third base down and just gets that up and running. As you do see those few Marines of Bomber just hanging around on the natural. Tank, Will, and Siege. And again, Stimpack and +1 attack upgrade from Bomber currently on the way out. So Bomber gathering these units up together. Tank will siege up. A couple more Marines coming over as well. As both players expanding in towards the third base. Just Bomber with the security of building it on location. He's just putting this down like right away here. Just doesn't seem to care. As we do see FanTaSy with a similar sort of setup. Tables have turned over in that PvZ as well, guys. As I was mentioning, MC looked as though he was holding on. Now MC has been the aggressor and he's about to clean up the game. I don't know why my hotkey isn't working to take you guys over to the picture-in-picture. That's very annoying. I'll have to figure that out after this game or something. Is it this? No. It may just work after a couple of minutes. Like, sometimes that's how expert hotkeys work, Sometimes they just randomly decide to start working again. Anyways, we're going to be seeing the units from Bomber coming out in towards the center. And we do see a couple of medevacs coming in from Bomber. They're actually seen by FanTaSy. And FanTaSy is way behind on Stim, so he has to be super reliant on his siege tank positioning to be able to defend these attacks. The Ravens and Vikings, he has the tools to defend, don't get me wrong. But Stim Marines are extremely dangerous if you're going to be caught out of position. And that's why he kind of is only on 2 bases. He can't take his third base in location like Bomber can. And that's probably why Bomber feels the security to do it, because these Marines will have that extra mobility. And that's obviously very, very good for him. And as you get ready for game number 2, MC Go Joey. Also just see Bomber is stacking up units in the middle of the map. Currently ahead by a few workers. Army supply is good. And again, he's going to be equal on upgrades even though he leads right now. And he's going to have combat shields way before FanTaSy as well. Again, you just got to remember, FanTaSy does have better tech units in play. He does have more of them. He has another extra tank. He has those Ravens and Vikings. And those are all going to be extremely important when it comes to how these fights go. As we do see moving out, Marines and tanks getting set up at the front. A single Marine up here from FanTaSy just going to sit on the high ground. And to the bottom side, a couple of Vikings and a Liberator here are going to be setting up as well. So FanTaSy actually sending a Liberator across over to the left-hand side. That's going to come up and try and siege on this third base. Get that sieged up nice and quickly. As you see, Bomber is again just hanging around with the Marines and the tanks. The Hellion as well, moving through down to the bottom right-hand side. So Bomber just moving around. Cyclone still here from FanTaSy. A few tanks and Marines. I just love it though, because I always feel, and I say this all the time because I really think it's true. In TvT, if you're the player that's out on the map being aggressive, then you're the one that's going to create a lot of opportunities for yourself, right? You're the one that's going to open up the chances to really show up big and just have great games, for example. So, yeah, I mean, you're just going to be able to say, oh, you know what, well, you're over there, well, let's maybe poke over here. And you have to not make a mistake as the defender, otherwise your opponent has a position on you that's going to be very tough to deal with. Anti-armor missile goes down. There's one tank in that natural still. These tanks here are going to try and cover the Marines from other units running back in. The tank is still alive. He needs to get rid of that. It is so low. And it actually gets repaired up, so those Marines don't pick that off. At the same time across the map, SCVs are going down to a Liberator. It's picked up 18 kills, the entire mineral line almost. Tons of damage done by a Liberator here, more so than what Bomber does to FanTaSy. And that's a little bit of a shame. Again, I feel like if you kill this tank, actually, though, you have control and you probably kill a lot more SCVs. Not sure why Bomber didn't dive in a little bit further for that. Has he still not realized that that Liberator's there? He sends some SCVs back to the natural, but he's not responding to this at all. No, he's sending SCVs up to his 4th base. I actually don't think he realized this Liberator was here during that attack. He was obviously occupied elsewhere. Now he sees the Liberator and he'll stem in with Marines. And unless there's target fire, which there isn't, he won't lose any more SCVs. He just loses the one Marine there. And that one Liberator from FanTaSy probably keeps him in this game a little bit, because if that Liberator doesn't do that damage, Bomber's up on 70 plus workers against 56 with a 4th base running. His economy is going to be absolutely insane, and that's what Bomber's so good at, just having insane economy, insane macro, and just playing from there. FanTaSy has been under so much pressure, he actually skipped out on 2-2 right away. Bomber went into +2 attack pretty quickly. And he already has that finished up, and I guess +3 will come up too. So he actually has an upgrade lead on the bio units as well. We'll see more tanks just holding a very passive position in the center of the map, as FanTaSy will start to come around the bottom side. And as FanTaSy curves around the bottom, well, he'll be moving across to see what he can do, especially with Bomber's base down here being so vulnerable. Tanks going to unsiege, and we're going to be seeing another couple of tanks probably going to want to unsiege as well. It's just going to be seeing, again, all of this getting set up to go. 2 more tanks from Bomber coming down into the center of the map here. It's just getting this set up to go. I mean, this is, again, like, what a position it is to hold, but then what do you have at home if a set of units just run around the side? Well, his Marines are over here, but he has no medevacs for them. He's already lost 15 SCVs. SCVs are going to pull in to try and protect the orbital. I mean, Bomber does have an upgrade lead. 2-1 is actually a huge deal for him here. And that actually will help him to really win out this fight. SCVs in the natural now in some trouble as well. FanTaSy is down on supply, as he is going to take a worker lead, but is still down on army. As maybe that'll change a little bit here as these Marines trade out quite nicely. These tanks just left alone in the middle of the map, and Bomber taking some risks. Again, holding the center of the map is great if you're doing something with it. You know, if he was a bit further forward, he denied this third base, great, but he really isn't. He's just making FanTaSy attack around the top or around the bottom. And the lack of sensor towers, I really feel, is something that's missing out for Bomber, because if he has a sensor tower here and a sensor tower there, well, at least he can start responding a bit sooner, take less losses from these attacks, and, you know, then hold the middle of the map is a little bit more forgiving. But again, he's just been sat here for a while with that tank spread, and well, now he unsieges. We'll see where he wants to go. He is maxed out. He is going to be not quite on an upgrade lead, I guess, because his 3-3 didn't start up right on time. And he wants to take another command center over here. Bomber is a madman. He just keeps on expanding. I'm pretty sure that's the CC that he wants to build in position. Well, there we go. A sensor tower and a sensor tower. Like I mentioned, I mean, just give you that pre-warning. It makes perfect, complete sense, actually, to actually invest into those there. So that works out quite nicely. We're going to be seeing Marines are going to stim in for those tanks. I mean, a lot of damage taken initially, but obviously it's kind of a sacrifice to be able to justify or to be able to grab this position. And you're going to be able to get a base out of it. So Bomber, I mean, he also gives up, you know, a good amount of Marines, but he does kill 5 tanks as well. So, you know, resets the tank count of FanTaSy, and that does hurt. The attempt to build a CC here shut down by the fact FanTaSy has units on the top side of the map, and Bomber, well, is just going to be setting up here still anti-armor missile right into the center of his Marines. He should not be able to fight here now. Probably just has to sit back. The tank fire is good. Interference radix to try and save a tank here from FanTaSy, but doesn't work out in time. And Bomber will just start to pull away here. I mean, those 2 Ravens that FanTaSy still has in the Vikings, that air control will still help out a lot. As Bomber's going to get flanked in on. FanTaSy's attack from the top side comes back, and Bomber will just try and escape with what he can, which is a couple of the siege tanks there. Wow, what a sudden turnaround. That unit squad from FanTaSy on the top turned into a huge deal, coming in and flanking that army. I mean, obviously Bomber was not prepared for FanTaSy to jump on a fight, because he wasn't sieged up or anything, so he really wasn't ready for that. As we're going to be seeing those other tanks sieging up as well, and Bomber going to be still moving through the center of the map here. Big stim from these Marines as Bomber moves around in the middle. A few tanks still kind of hanging around as well. Another couple of tanks sieging up from FanTaSy, as you see, +3 attack and +3 armor. On the way down as well, +2 vehicle weapons also coming up here currently. A couple of Marines in the front going to get taken down, and again, just going to see those Marines stimming forwards. Anti-armor missile drops down, and again, just going to be seeing, well, anti-armor missiles are very good, but all of the tanks go down, and Bomber's Marine count is just absolutely insane. 3-3 means that once he gets out of anti-armor as well, he is going to absolutely shred Marines of his opponent, which are still currently 2-2. And Bomber, he obviously denied that 4th base, so FanTaSy is struggling in terms of keeping an economy going. Down 40 army supply. Bomber is playing a magnificent game of TvT at the moment. He is absolutely killing it right here. So Bomber absolutely killing it right now. Is on the left-hand side, some Marines will drop off. Marine stim over from Bomber, but again, with the upgrade advantage, he will actually win this fight still convincingly. Upgrades on Marines are huge. Because of their attack speed, it's actually insane what upgrades can do. As I mean, that's going to potentially be a dead command center again. It's a lot of Marines to give up if he loses them, but he won't. And FanTaSy will still be struggling to take a 4th base. 2 more tanks sieging up here. Oh, a couple tanks on the ramp as well. Bomber just sort of stims up. What's he doing? Where's he going? Oh my god, Bomber just lost like 20 plus Marines for nothing. We're going to be seeing Interference Radix trying to hold this position as he will stim in, though. He will get on the 3rd base if he wants it. So he has that position as he scans up there. He gets the tank. There was no vision there from FanTaSy. FanTaSy bringing his tanks back down here. Now the Liberators will force an unsiege. And well, again, FanTaSy tries to attack in, but he's still missing an armor upgrade. Listen, the armor upgrade is just as big as the attack upgrade for Marines. As we do see another tank getting taken down at least, so FanTaSy will hold on for now. Oh, the Vikings get the medevac with the tanks inside. Bomber gets out of there with 0 siege tanks, but again, he's put FanTaSy down to 3 bases, and he's keeping FanTaSy down a step behind him at the moment, while we see that 5th base now coming up from Bomber in the bottom left-hand corner. Marines and tanks setting up over here. Couple Vikings, medevacs, all of this getting set to go, as we do see this army of Bomber going to be coming through the middle of the map right now as well. So that's just going to be pushing across over towards the right side, most probably. The top side, a command center being placed down as well, plus 2 vehicle weapons about to finish. So upgrades are now finally evening out. Finally, Bomber won't be able to just take Marine fights with less Marines and win anyways, which has actually been happening quite a lot this game, especially when he's had to defend. FanTaSy will finally get a 4th base in the form of his main base orbital, because you know what, he only had 122 gas and 120 minerals left on this main base anyways, so get that main out of there, get that into position, and try and get something done as Bomber rallying units into the middle. I mean, FanTaSy just needs this base, but Bomber already on a 5th base, Planetary Fortress. He's got a 6th base built into the top side. FanTaSy scans it, he sees it, immediately loads up a medevac to go up there, but I mean, really, so, you know, even if he forces this to lift off and leave, there's a base in the bottom left, which is still a base advantage from Bomber, which is just fantastic, as we're going to be seeing the couple tanks continuing to set up on the right side. You're going to see Marines pressing forwards here. No, some Marines dropping on top of tanks too. Again, a good little position here. Anti-armor missile will strike the Marines again, though. Those early game Ravens have been absolutely crazy. But it still doesn't stop this entire base going down. 20 workers along with it. Now he kills one of the Ravens. Finally, I would say, because goddamn, those Ravens have been an absolute menace. We're going to see the Liberators, though, picking off these siege tanks. That's 3 kills as Bomber, though, drops straight into the main base. He's on top of the production. These tanks do not respond at all, so Bomber loses a ton of tanks, but with the macro that he has, he just doesn't care. It's just typical Bomber. He's like, you know what, kill all my units. I've got so much to rebuild with. I literally couldn't care less, and well, now he's going to be able to pick off a lot of this. He can't really get out of here with these Marines because the Vikings will shut down the medevacs, but he doesn't need to. He wins the Marine fight. The tanks will probably start to destroy him. The medevacs will boost away. The Vikings can't keep up, and these Marines will just go and get whatever else they can and miss that turret here and there. The CC did get forced to lift by this drop that we saw leaving from FanTaSy, but there's so many other CCs as well, and all it's going to take is a few of these units to stim over there, and that should be all good as Bomber's sitting down to the bottom side, just chilling out with those Marines still. It's definitely not been the prettiest of games from Bomber. It's not been perfect, but it's been good enough. He's taken his advantages where he can, and even though he's been reckless with units, he's been able to, with the way that the game has played out. Marines, tanks gathering up in the center of the map. We see these units from FanTaSy coming in from the right-hand side as well. Going to be pressing forwards. We see Bomber just going to be coming in, stims up. Okay, well, here we go. A moment of truth. Are these tanks going to be too much? The Marines, I'm a little worried for them. I just love the fact that he just doesn't even bother trying to split. He's just like, yeah, siege tanks, I want to kill them all. Oh my god. Match, which is this TvT. And lo and behold, down a map in the bottom right-hand side, the red Terran player, this is FanTaSy. Top left-hand side, our blue Terran player, this is Bomber. Got ahead, took that lead, and he just ran with that lead. He did not care, and he did not stop. Fantastic stuff from him, and excited to see how this goes. Alright. So I'm just fixing up a couple of my chat channels on my laptop so I can join into a couple of games a bit easier. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so game number 2 here. And we'll see if the players want to expand here, right? Again, there's just a single gas actually from Bomber, so Bomber's probably like, yeah, that's macro again. FanTaSy might have something to say about this. A couple of gases down from him. are going to be very, very, much more aggressive, faster factory. And he does pull out those, so it's going to be like a defensive factory opener, which means he will expand. And that will give Bomber, I think, a bit of an advantage here, because generally Bomber will have everything up to defend in time, so he should be looking to be okay. Who is this Bomber? Bomber is an absolute legend, WCS champion, and a whole bunch more. I mean, he had one of the most successful careers in StarCraft 2 throughout the earlier stages of the game, throughout the first couple expansions. He is very well known in Wings of Liberty. Triple Command Center play in StarCraft 2 was created by Bomber. You know, he actually made Triple Command Center 3CC builds work. He's an MLG champion. He's a multiple-time GSL top 8 finisher through the early years of StarCraft 2. He finished in Red, played a ton of Red Bull events. That Bomber versus Scarlet game on Habitation Station, where Scarlet burrows the bane lanes and Bomber runs across it. That was a Bomber series. Bomber was the Terran in that game. Absolutely, probably one of the best games of StarCraft 2 ever before. He had a top 4 finish in the 2013 BlizzCon. And again, just so many other events as well. He won, again, WCS events, Season 2 finals, I remember, in 2013, the year he finished top 4 in BlizzCon. He finished first place in WCS Premier League one time. He's run, again, just a ton of strong performances from this guy throughout the years of 2012, 2013, and 2014. So, really, really, really a player you should know if you're a StarCraft fan. I mean, obviously, if you're a new StarCraft fan, I'm not going to blame you for not knowing him, but it's a player you should get to know is what I mean. And you should go check out some of his past victories and his past tournaments, because he is really a legend of the scene. Well and truly. So, yeah. Just going to be seeing the Hellion. And this Reaper just hanging out on the upper left-hand side. Having a little bit of a look to see what might happen as we have a medevac tank, Marines on the way up from FanTaSy. There's expansion about to finish, but again, what can he really do to apply pressure? Well, maybe with the medevac, he's going to try for maybe a second medevac as well and go for like 8 Marines, 2 tank drop. That would be my guessing game right now, because that is what it kind of lines up for. He's got the gas for a second medevac as well. Nope, just going to be 4 Marines and 1 medevac. I mean, I guess I wasn't all wrong. I was just, twice as correct. In a way. Again, I mean, double medevac, 68 Marines and 2 tanks is very powerful. 1 tank, 4 Marines is not quite as powerful, but can still get something done. Obviously, FanTaSy really wants to just push this across the map ASAP. So, just going to get those few Marines unloading, and already the Marines taking some fire. You see that Cyclone taking some shots as well. Tank shots all good at the moment, and actually, Bomber lost quite a lot of those early units. So this is where FanTaSy, I wouldn't even say FanTaSy necessarily has much of an advantage on this timing. I mean, this could have been the siege tank from Bomber. Instead, he chooses for a Cyclone. He didn't need to lose those Marines either. He just got a little bit too aggressive and was standing too far forwards as that tank first sieged up, and that was painful for him. Now his natural command center is in quite a bit of trouble, taking a bit of a beating. Viking up in the sky is going to deal some damage to this medevac, and that medevac does take a little bit more damage. Viking ends up pulling away. Cyclone locking on, going to be able to pick up a Marine. SCVs will now have to repair this command center. Siege tank of Bomber here will be able to push other units away at least, and now it's only going to be the siege tank that can really come in. But also with the medevac, you should be able to deny the vision for the tank to actually be able to fire on the CC all of the time, which is also kind of a big deal. So in the end here, Bomber will hold on. It's been messy. It's not been great, but it's going to be enough. I'm surprised the Viking isn't trying to be a bit more aggressive on that medevac, because again, it's the medevac that is really being super frustrating right now. Bomber has a 3rd CC already, and the FanTaSy just started his, so in terms of economy, Bomber will be just fine as long as he survives this here. Oh, interference matrix so that FanTaSy can move forwards. SCVs are going to come in and repair that tank right away, and now 2 tanks are going to siege up in position, and this is going to get really messy. The second tank from Bomber comes forwards. He will get his tank stayed alive. He's pulling SCVs forwards into this as well, but with the Marines, I think there's just going to be too much, and FanTaSy is going to pick this apart. He's done so much damage here. FanTaSy, he's up 20 workers, and the army supply is huge as well. Bomber drops his own mules and taps out of the game as FanTaSy. As we start up on blue shift to the top right-hand side, our red Terran player. This is FanTaSy. Up against the blue Terran in the bottom left. Bomber. Bomber! Honestly, what a treat it is to cast these 2 Terran players. Shame they have to meet first round. Again, what we're playing for today, guys, 8 players from today's bracket will advance to play in stage 2 of the qualifier, from which 3 players will then advance to play in the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice 2019. They get seeded straight to the round of 24. Obviously, if they do get eliminated, they can still play in Katowice. They just have to apply to play in the open bracket, and they have to play the open bracket, which starts as like a round of 76, and you have to be like one of the 12 players in the top of that to then advance through into the round of 24. Prize money does get paid out for the round of for the open bracket in general, though, as long as he plays through a round or 2. It's pretty good for you actually. So, yeah, pretty cool. So get this setting up. Just waiting to see what's going to be happening here for this third game. Of course, command center on each side of the map, so both of them already fast expansion into second gas, and yeah, just very regular again here without many complications. So really nothing too crazy to begin with for these early stages, and seeing where this goes. Starport will drop down a little bit later here from Bomber. His gas timings were just a little bit different to FanTaSy's, but nothing too major. He's an SUV ahead. Again, nothing too crazy. They did go double gas before expanding, but it was kind of both of them doing the same kind of defensive factory opening. So, again, you know, while it's not exact, you know, while it's not super fast expands, it's still fairly fast expands, and it's still both of them doing the same thing, which is kind of cool for going into a bit more of a macro-focused game. It means it's unlikely we see a faster attack from FanTaSy like in game number 2 there, which can just come across the map and just kill Bomber like boom, because Bomber wasn't quite prepared. He built a cycle instead of a tank. It did catch him off guard. He lost a lot of early units as well, which really hurt for him. So, well, here you go. Hellions and Reapers coming through the bottom side. Still on the right side, Hellion, Reaper, and a Cyclone just hanging out as well. Raven on the way up from FanTaSy 2. Just going to be seeing those Reapers and those Hellions. You want to start pressing forwards. When Cyclone locks on, and it's going to deal a little bit of damage to that Hellion there. So again, a little bit of damage done at the moment. Raven on each side of the map as we see the third CC bomber. He loves it, man. He's just like, you know, he's just like, oh, this is StarCraft 2. We built 3 command centers, right? Yeah, cool, cool. Like, thumbs up. Love it, love it, guys. I can get used to this again. It's just Bomber. That's what I love about it. It's like just so typical. It's just like typical Bomber. It really is. Oh, yeah. Ooh, second factory. So Bomber's going to switch it up and play mech here for game number 3. I can get behind it on Blue Shift. It's one of those maps where holding your next few bases actually comes quite naturally with mech. And with all the attack points moving in, you know, you kind of cover the drop path by holding this base here, for example, as your third, so you can protect the main quite nicely. You know, all these attack paths in are all very narrow, so it's very difficult to flank into a mech army unless you preemptively kill rocks. But even then, I mean, this is probably like the best position to fight a mech army. You can run in from here and here as a defending player. I mean, even that can look difficult, and can be difficult to kind of pull off. I mean, attacking up here, it's even rougher, right? Because these rocks are choking you up, and it gets really tough, actually. And that's why Bomber will probably expand down here with this mech play. Again, it covers the main base with the army as well, so you don't have to deal with drops or anything pushing towards that. And it's also a little bit more choked up here, too. And again, you can it just defends a little bit nicer. Going to be seeing the tanks, Hellions, and a Raven just hanging out in the natural expansion with these few units of FanTaSy coming across to the left-hand side. So FanTaSy looking to try and apply some pressure. Again, it's just FanTaSy. He's got the double Raven, the couple and the couple tanks. But on the other side of things, Bomber, as he moves out to take the third, he has, well, couple of Vikings and a Raven of his own, but he doesn't see those tanks, I don't think. Well, now he's going to lose a tank right away. Tries to siege it, but it's just a little bit too late. So he can't really take the third base in location at the moment. As you see that Cyclone lock on is going to push that Viking away. So we've seen a few more SCVs pulling in just to repair up those Hellions a bit. Bomber will pull the third CC back. I'm not sure if he actually wants to take this base or if he'll just wait a little while before taking this base. What he doesn't want to allow happen is for FanTaSy to continue applying so much pressure. He's going to get a lot done. I love this, by the way. Bomber built all of his structures in the back, making sure that, you know, nothing's going to be caught off guard here by, like, a siege up of the main. So that's actually really sick, because a lot of players will just, I mean, even FanTaSy, if he got sieged up here, his units would be in trouble. You know, his structures would get pushed back. Bomber does end up just taking the top side base. Again, it's not as ideal, but better to take that base. He doesn't know how long FanTaSy's going to try and hold this position for, right? In the end, FanTaSy pulls away. Now FanTaSy takes this top side base as well. Now I kind of like this for Bomber anyways, though, because FanTaSy has to be focused on this top side to defend anyways, which means pushing around the bottom and getting into this position to drop the main isn't as easy. But just in general, Bomber can now just have a straight attack path from the third up the map. Now he attacks into this position as well, which is going to be difficult to bring a flank in on. So I kind of like it, actually. I kind of like it for Bomber. While he didn't take the better base for himself, FanTaSy did take the base that is maybe a bit better to attack his mech. As we're going to be seeing those Hellions coming in, and, well, they're actually going to find themselves a siege tank right there. Are they going to get the kill? He dies for it, and he gets it. I mean, a Hellion for a siege tank is worth it every day of the week, don't get me wrong there. FanTaSy has Vikings and Ravens up in the sky, and Bomber's just going to set up this siege tank line. His own Viking count is growing. His Vikings now 8 against 8, actually, but only 1 Raven, so that's worth keeping in mind. Anti-armor missiles and the use of the interference matrix will be very important. 2 more Vikings on the way out, and again, those few tanks just on siege and pulling back up through the top side here. Combat shields because of shells on the way through, and again, just seen 1-1 upgrades coming in at the moment. Reactor and Attack Lab dropping down. Quick update as Hero takes game number 1 off of MC. We'll keep you guys up to date with that as well as we get more information. A couple more supply depots dropping down here from FanTaSy, so getting those depots down. We're going to be seeing an armory from FanTaSy in the back of the natural, ready for his 2-2 upgrades. And well, he has found himself a chance to attack through this bottom side. Bomber obviously very carefully is positioning a Reaper here to be able to see this coming. He now knows that push along is on its way. Bomber has so many Vikings. Obviously at some point here the Bio player starts to build a couple of medevacs. Auto turrets en masse from both players. Now those Vikings with the anti-armor missile on them is really going to hurt, but not just that, the auto turret's obviously got a lot of damage done on it as well. FanTaSy's going to break into the natural expansion here, and he holds the position to stop units really coming in from the top side and in towards the position to defend here. And Bomber just wasn't quite in position. The anti-armor missile, just the double Raven is again so important here every single time. Double Raven is just so good. The anti-armor missile into so many auto turrets. Absolutely huge, and now FanTaSy is in this position where he's pushing this base, pushing that main, and that problem that we talked about Bomber taking this third base up here, straight away, instantly. First time FanTaSy goes for a larger push, he abuses it right away. Vikings land, and, well, even that's not going to go, that doesn't go so well for FanTaSy, as Bomber might be able to clean this out. Clean this out is not exactly the greatest, the greatest response to all of this, and Bomber knows it is pretty over. Types out GG. FanTaSy